Jones really wanted to make this tower into a super luxury hotel.
Hello? Anyone here?
This place is disproportionate. Good morning. Let me introduce myself, Inspector Jack Norm. I'm here to conduct the investigation on the death of Mr. Jones.
Inspector Norm. Very good. Very good. I am Martin Abruzzi, the husband of Sonia Jones, the granddaughter of the deceased.
May I photograph your shoes?
If this will be of use to you, Inspector, go ahead.
Thanks.
The interview can start, Inspector.
I'm surprised that Colio, even if he was angry at Jones, was not more grateful for his generosity.
I don't know anything about this, Inspector.
What do these gifts from Jones hide? Why did he want to assure the future of Colio and his daughter?
I was unaware of all of this.
What can you tell me regarding the death of Walter Jones?
Mr. De Noland had us all come together in the restaurant to give us the tragic news. It was a terrible shock for us, as you might suspect. Outside, the storm was raging. Abominable weather. It would have been madness to go out and risk our lives. Because, in truth, we couldn't have brought poor Mr. Jones back to life.
Where were you and what were you doing last night?
I spent the evening at the restaurant with my wife Sonia and the other guests until the departure of Mr. Jones. I returned to my suite at around 10:30 p.m. to read a manuscript, and I soon went to bed. It was Sonia who woke me up to tell me about the tragedy that had taken place.
What was your relationship with Walter Jones?
I certainly won't try to play any games with you, Inspector, and I won't surprise you if I tell you that I didn't have much affection for this man. He was the grandfather of my wife, full stop. That's it. A grandfather who was not particularly likable. He didn't behave very well with Sonia and me, and I have not forgotten. Therefore, his death truly doesn't affect me.
This menu seems utterly appetizing. Tell me, what are we eating today?
I admit I'm not a lover of this kind of sophisticated cuisine, Inspector.
This tower on this wild island, far from everything, isn't it madness?
If I had been in charge of promoting this hotel, I would definitely have chosen a sales brochure that was less flashy, Inspector. It is pretentious and ridiculous. It's brash to tell you what I really think. But it seems to work on you, Inspector.
What luxury. For some, the world is all roses. But where did the staff go? I don't see them.
I don't know, and to tell you the truth, I don't care. And what's more, Mr. Jones was extremely rich. He did whatever he fancied with his money, after all.
Who is the rightful owner of this piece of chain?
I confess I haven't the foggiest idea.
I'm wondering whose shoe prints these are.
Sorry, I don't know. I don't wear that kind of shoes.
I would love it if you could tell me a little about Sonia.
I'm badly placed to answer you with any objectivity, Inspector. Sonia is my wife. Sonia is the woman I love. Sonia is the woman of my life. She is irreplaceable for me.
What do you think of Colio?
I didn't have the chance to spend much time with Colio, Inspector. I don't really know him.
What do you know about Lorenzo Battaglieri?
Delicate question, Inspector. I take Lorenzo to be a whimsical creature, somewhat unreliable, and is commonly considered to be an incompetent to boot.
What do you think of Baina?
Baina? The untamed young girl? What can I say? I have the impression that maybe she isn't entirely a stranger to Walter Jones's death.
Why would Baina have something to do with Walter Jones's death?
I know the old man ran after her a little. That surely couldn't have been to her taste.
What do you think of the attorney, Hubert de Noland?
I cannot comment on Mr. de Noland for the simple reason that I do not know him, Inspector.
Did you see anyone at the Tortoise Belvedere last evening, or did anything at all catch your attention?
I'm afraid I won't be very useful to you, Inspector. I had dinner with the guests and with Mr. Jones. I stayed for a bit after the old man had left for his evening walk. It must have been around 10 p.m. Then I went back to my apartment. Well, the suite that was reserved for Sonia and me. It was around 10:30 p.m. I wanted to finish reading a manuscript. I'm a publisher, as you certainly must already know. So I read and then I slept. I confess I was pretty exhausted by the trip.
Do you know anything about medicine?
Of course not.
Too bad. I really need some medical advice. Well, I will wait for the coroner's report. I have to believe you. Thanks. I will certainly be able to use this for something. Good morning, sir. I'm Jack Norm, police inspector. I'm mandated to conduct the investigation on the death of Mr. Walter Jones.
Good morning, Mr. Inspector Jack Norm. It's funny, your name rings a bell. Well, anyway, I'm Billy Jones, grandson and soon heir of the late Walter Jones. Well, at least I hope so.
May I photograph your shoes?
To each his own, Inspector. Go ahead.
Thanks. A question is buzzing in my head. I'm surprised that Colio, even if he was angry at Jones, was not more grateful for his generosity.
Well, I really have no idea, Norm. I'm not in the loop.
What do these gifts from Jones hide? Why did he want to assure the future of Colio and his daughter?
No, I have no idea.
What can you tell me regarding the death of Walter Jones?
I found out about the death of the old man like everyone else at around 11:30 p.m. It was Nolan, his right-hand man, who informed us. This guy risked his life to save the old miser. Unbelievable, huh? The daughter of the fisherman, Coutillo, whatever. She's apparently involved.
Where were you and what were you doing last night?
I was absorbed in a hand of poker and I was having pretty good luck. With Sonia and Martin for partners and Nolan, the attorney of my grandfather, came to inform us of the death.
What was your relationship with Walter Jones?
Yeah, I don't really want to tell you stories about my family. What I can tell you is that I had 1,000 reasons to detest the old man. But I immediately reassure you, Norm, the death of my grandfather took me completely by surprise.
Tell me more about your reasons for hating your grandfather, please.
Principally to do with money, Inspector. I've got a fair bit of debt and my super-rich grandfather never wanted to lend me a cent. But if you want to go there, I would never kill anyone for money. Or anything else for that matter.
This menu seems utterly appetizing. Tell me, what are we eating today?
I'm not a fan of this stuff, Norm. Moreover, the chef was given the boot, we're told. The old man told us to cope by ourselves.
This tower on this wild island, far from everything, isn't it madness?
It's all bullshit, this tower. There's not even a game room here. Not one, Inspector. Can you believe that?
What luxury. For some, the world is all roses. But where did the staff go? I don't see them.
All I can tell you is that my grandfather was a genius at throwing money out the window, and at never letting his relatives benefit. You know, deep down, it doesn't surprise me that things happen this way.
Walter Jones gave this to Baina, didn't he? What were the bonds that connected them?
Listen, man, I'm not a saint, I have my faults, but I think that the old man was really revolting to want to fuck this girl.
Who is the rightful owner of this piece of chain?
Sorry, but I don't know anything about this, Norm.
I'm wondering whose shoe prints these are.
How am I supposed to know, Inspector? I'm not a shoemaker.
I would love it if you could tell me a little about Sonia.
Sonia's my sibling, dude. She's an awesome, intelligent, and generous woman, always attentive to the needs of others. In short, she's a super sister.
What do you think of Colio?
Sorry, man, I don't know him.
What do you know about Lorenzo Battaglieri?
Lorenzo has talent, and those who tell you otherwise are lying and probably jealous. He's my friend, and I find it disgusting that he was put aside by Nolan and my grandfather. Lorenzo was in a way their scapegoat, you know?
What do you think of Baina?
Ah, Baina. That natural, young, beautiful, and mute girl who makes men's heads turn. Well, except mine, of course.
I would like to know more about Martin.
Martin? Yeah, great guy. One shouldn't tease him too much, you know. He's rather susceptible, but otherwise okay.
What do you think of the attorney, Hubert de Noland?
Ha! Nolan. He's a real poet, huh? If I could earn 1/10 of what he does thanks to his shrewdness at robbing the IRS, then I can tell you I'd be rich.
Did you see anyone at the Tortoise Belvedere last evening, or did anything at all catch your attention?
I didn't see anything of what was happening outside. I was absorbed in a hand of poker with Sonia and Martin.
Do you know anything about medicine?
No. Sorry, man.
In that case, you can't help me. Thank you for the information. Good morning, miss. I'm Jack Norm, police inspector. I'm charged with routine investigation of the death of Mr. Jones.
Good morning, Mrs. Jones, Clara Jones. I'm Billy Jones's wife. Walter Jones was his grandfather, but I didn't really know him. So I will be direct with you. I'm not really in an awful state about his death.
I'm collecting footprints, and I'd like to add yours.
My feet? It seems they are marvelous. You are amazing, Inspector. Go on.
Thanks.
Mr. Inspector, charged with the investigation? I'm all ears.
I'm surprised that Colio, even if he was angry at Jones, was not more grateful for his generosity.
I wasn't in the know, Inspector.
What can you tell me regarding the death of Walter Jones?
I have De Nolan's version. He said that he went to the Tortoise Belvedere where Walter Jones had fallen from the top of the cliff in his wheelchair. Now, whether it was an accident or a murder, that I can't say. I wasn't at the site, Inspector.
Where were you and what were you doing last night?
Well, I was at the restaurant throughout the evening, and I can't say anything more. It was Nolan who informed us about Walter's death.
What was your relationship with Walter Jones?
Would you be surprised if I said that our relationship was far from good? His death won't change anything. This guy hurt a lot of people. I won't cry for him.
This menu seems utterly appetizing. Tell me, what are we eating today?
I love cooking, and I do pretty well. But I'd be utterly incapable of making any of the dishes on this wretched menu.
This tower on this wild island, far from everything. Isn't it madness?
Tell me, Inspector, are you here to have a good time or to conduct an investigation?
What luxury. For some, the world is all roses. But where did the staff go? I don't see them.
Old Man Jones threw out all his staff to force his children to handle everything. And I certainly don't like playing the maid.
Who is the rightful owner of this piece of chain?
These links are really strong. It must be a man's.
What reasons could Billy have had for hating his grandfather?
How can you love someone who never helped you even when he had the power? I know my Billy sometimes abuses money, but Walter Jones was really heartless. He never lifted even his little finger to get Billy out of his problems.
So, tell me a little about Billy?
Billy is not a solid and mature man on whom one can rely, Inspector. My life with him is not always easy, but he makes me laugh and amuses me. And he still surprises me after all these years. So, what can I say?
I would love it if you could tell me a little about Sonia.
Sonia is an exceptional woman, Inspector. She inherited the straightforwardness of her mother. And I'm lucky to have a sister-in-law like her, you know.
What do you think of Colio?
I don't really know this Mr. Colio, but he's always very polite with me.
What do you know about Lorenzo Battiglieri?
Lorenzo Battiglieri is doubtlessly talented, Inspector, but I don't like his cynical and embittered nature.
What do you think of Baina?
I always wondered what happened to her, the poor thing. I wanted to talk about the accident. Indeed, the Jones family is in the habit of calling it the accident. She became mute after all.
And could you tell me more about this accident?
My husband already told me about it, but he doesn't know anything precise. He only told me that Jones and Baina had an accident together.
I would like to know more about Martin.
I like Martin. He gives the impression of being a good sort. In general, my intuition is never wrong, Inspector. But we don't know each other very well, in fact.
What do you think of the attorney, Hubert de Nolant?
Hubert de Nolant is a real professional, Inspector. And an attorney like him is influential. I never forget.
Did you see anyone at the Tortoise Belvedere last evening, or did anything at all catch your attention?
Well, I can't tell you anything. I spent the evening at the restaurant. Sonia, Martin, and Billy will confirm this.
Do you know anything about medicine?
No, Inspector.
I understand. Too bad that you can't help me. Without a doubt. Thank you. Good morning, Inspector Jack Norm. I'm the one charged with investigating the death of Mr. Jones.
Ah, it's you who will be investigating. Very good. Good morning, Inspector. I'm Marco Jones. Walter Jones was my grandfather. I would have preferred if you had been a tourist, because you have landed on the island of Segura for a sad reason.
May I photograph your shoes?
No problem. Do as you have to, Inspector.
Thanks.
Ah, it's you again, Inspector. So,
I'm surprised that Colio, even if he was angry at Jones, was not more grateful for his generosity.
I have nothing to say about that, Inspector. I don't know what you're talking about.
What do these gifts from Jones hide? Why did he want to assure the future of Colio and his daughter?
I can say nothing on the subject, Inspector.
What can you tell me regarding the death of Walter Jones?
How I would have loved to have done something to save my grandfather, but it was too late and too dangerous. It was Nolan who gave me the news. He suspects the daughter of the fisherman, but it's you who is the inspector, not me.
Where were you and what were you doing last night?
I spent the evening in my room, in Christina's company. It was Sonia who told me around 11:30 p.m. about what had happened. It was difficult to believe it. My grandfather was a real force of nature, despite his handicap.
What was your relationship with Walter Jones?
I greatly appreciated my grandfather. Walter was a great man, Inspector. I admired his rise to success. He did it all alone. We were very close in spite of all the old stories which my brother and my sister must have endlessly told you about.
Which stories are you talking about?
Old family quarrels. We are divided on our opinion about my grandfather, you see. My brother and my sister maybe hope to involve you. As far as it concerns me, I've nothing to add.
This tower on this wild island, far from everything, isn't it madness?
Alas, my grandfather will not have the time to successfully finish the magnificent project, of which this brochure gives you only a small taste.
What luxury. For some, the world is all roses. But where did the staff go? I don't see them.
Indeed, Nolan told me that my grandfather had to part with his staff, but for a reason that I don't know, Inspector.
Walter Jones gave this to Baina, didn't he? What were the bonds that connected them?
Really, Inspector, I didn't know. It's not the kind of thing my grandfather would do.
Who is the rightful owner of this piece of chain?
Sorry, Inspector Norm, but I'm afraid I won't be useful to you.
I'm wondering whose shoe prints these are.
I can't be useful. I can just tell those are not mine, Inspector.
I'm told that an accident left Baina mute. What is that about?
My grandfather was always very discreet about that. I know that he and Baina fell off the cliff right here on this island, and that it cost him the use of his limbs. As for Baina, she remained mute from the time of the tragic event. But I don't know more details about this affair, Inspector.
What reasons could Billy have had for hating his grandfather?
Our grandfather hated the useless waste of money. Billy lost a lot of money gambling and hoped that grandfather would help him float back up, which of course he refused.
So, tell me a little about Billy.
Billy is still a child at heart, Inspector. He still makes me laugh sometimes, but he is totally irresponsible. It's very hard for his family.
I would love it if you could tell me a little about Sonia.
Sonia is my sister, and I have a lot of affection for her. She is a very strong and courageous woman.
What do you think of Colio?
I saw Colio on several occasions, of course, but I don't know him well.
What do you know about Lorenzo Battaglieri?
Lorenzo is a mystery for me, Inspector. He's a professional lightweight, bordering on an imposter, and he takes refuge in a cynical depression that's very unpleasant for others.
What do you think of Baina?
I don't really know her, Inspector. I have nothing special to say on this subject.
I would like to know more about Martin.
I appreciate my brother-in-law's qualities, Inspector, but we don't see each other much, and I hardly know him, and that's fine with me.
What do you think of the attorney, Hubert de Noland?
Noland. He's not a nobody. He's one of the best business attorneys on this planet, Inspector. It's not by chance that my grandfather recruited him.
What can you tell me about Clara?
Clara is an extremely kind woman, Inspector. She is almost a saint, and I don't know how she has put up with Billy for so long.
Do you know anything about medicine?
No.
In that case, you can't help me. Did you see anyone at the Tortoise Belvedere last evening, or did anything at all catch your attention?
Sorry, Inspector Norm, but I saw nothing. I, for one, spent the evening in my room with my girlfriend, Christina.
I get it. Good morning, miss. My name is Jack Norm. I'm a police inspector. I have to conduct an investigation on the death of Walter Jones.
Good morning, Inspector. I am Christina Bromsky. I am the girlfriend of Marco Jones, and Mr. Walter is not from my family. I didn't know him well. I don't like this place, which is full of sadness for Marco today.
I'm collecting footprints, and I'd like to add yours.
If it amuses you, Inspector, the feet, it is said, are an erogenous zone. I meant it for your investigation, of course.
Thanks. Excuse me, just one question. It won't be too long. I'm surprised that Colio, even if he was angry at Jones, was not more grateful for his generosity.
In any case, it's not to me that Mr. Jones would have made a gift.
What can you tell me regarding the death of Walter Jones?
I don't know anything, Jack. It's the attorney who told us everything. He almost died to save the old man. Such courage is beautiful. Don't you agree, Jack?
Where were you and what were you doing last night?
I spent the evening in the room with Marco. We were both there. Sonia told us about the death of Mr. Jones around 11:30 p.m.
What was your relationship with Walter Jones?
I didn't know Mr. Jones well, Jack. But I feel bad for Marco, who loved his grandfather so much.
This menu seems utterly appetizing. Tell me, what are we eating today?
So you're a gourmand, Inspector Norm?
This tower on this wild island, far from everything. Isn't it madness?
The photos are more beautiful than real life, Jack. The island doesn't enjoy good weather and it's deadly boring. Good thing that you came to liven up the place.
What luxury. For some, the world is all roses. But where did the staff go? I don't see them.
Oh yeah? I wasn't in the know. I'm not very interested in these things. It's not good for a prestigious hotel like this one.
Walter Jones gave this to Baina, didn't he? What were the bonds that connected them?
A diamond? One has to find the woman, Jack. Walter Jones was still very young, wasn't he? Despite his age. He must have used the gift to... In short, you see what I'm saying, Jack?
Who is the rightful owner of this piece of chain?
I can't tell it all, Jack. Is it okay if I call you Jack?
No, call me whatever you prefer. I'm told that an accident left Baina mute. What is that about?
I don't know anything about it. I thought she was mute from birth.
Christina, can you confirm to me that you passed the end of the evening with Marco?
Yes, of course, Jack.
So, tell me a little about Billy.
Billy is very cool. He's a very funny guy. He definitely gambles in life, just as he does in poker.
I would love it if you could tell me a little about Sonia.
Sonia is not as nice as she seems. I am possibly the only one who sees the truth about this. She is a snub who was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She thinks only of herself. She looks down on those who cannot give her something. My life in this family is not very easy, you know, Jack?
What do you think of Colio?
The old man who lives near here? I don't know him.
What do you know about Lorenzo Battaglieri?
Lorenzo is a very charming man. He has a sort of tragic humor, which reminds me of my countrymen. I like him, Jack.
What do you think of Baina?
Baina? I am sorry, Jack, but I have nothing to say about her.
I would like to know more about Martin.
Martin is a very cultured man. He is also very charming. I like him a lot.
What do you think of the attorney, Hubert de Noland?
Hubert de Noland is a pretentious and arrogant man, Jack. He is even humiliating sometimes. A lowlife.
What can you tell me about Marco?
Marco. Marco. He is my darling. I am his guardian angel. I protect him as much as I can. I stick up for those I love, Jack.
What can you tell me about Clara?
She is very sweet, Jack. She is a little silly, but very nice. She married a gambler with a sense of humor, Jack, so she can't be bad.
Did you see anyone at the Tortoise Belvedere last evening, or did anything at all catch your attention?
I don't know anything about it, Mr. Norm. I spent the evening in my room with my boyfriend, Marco. After dinner and a short hand of poker, I learned of the death of Walter Jones around 11:30 p.m.
Do you know anything about medicine?
No, Jack. I'm sorry.
I understand. Too bad that you can't help me. I see. This could be useful. This could be useful. This could be useful.